All right, Matthew, this is going to be a quick kind of introduction after what you've already done. So, I just started a new project and this window comes up. It's obviously the composition settings as it says. We're always going to leave this 1920 by 1080 pixels. That's just the size of the project. We're always going to leave that alone. And the only thing you're ever going to change after that is the duration, which means the time. And right here is a millisecond. These are seconds. This is, I'm sorry, right? Milliseconds, seconds, hours, and days. Yes, that's what it is. So milliseconds, seconds, hours, days. So right here, we're just going to start in this example together and change this to 10. And here's how you change the background color. The background color doesn't really matter. I'm just going to leave it black. And you can drag this window around from the corner depending on how much room you want, how much room you need. This is your assets library, your project assets. This is where everything you import stuff like pictures and stuff. You just right click here and then you go to import file and then you can find pictures, videos, whatever. We're not going to import anything for this. This is the timeline down here. This blue line is called the scrubber. These are the seconds in your project, and they say F because I'm going to bring this back up right here. The frame rate is 30 frames per second. It's 29.97. We're rounding up to 30 frames per second. So if you look down here, it says 15:1. So it says 0 frames, 15 frames, 1 second, 1:15, 2 seconds. Okay, that's how you can interpret that. And now down here, this is how you zoom in and out on the timeline. So what I want you to do along with me is to just drag this to the right, and then you can see you have the individual frames. So go ahead and drag this to the right. I'll pause. And then drag it back to the left. And then you can see I'm zoomed all the way in to the right and then all the way out to the left. All right, what we're going to do first is create a shape. Up here, these are your tools that you need. If you hover your mouse over a tool, it'll tell you what the tool is and the shortcut key for that tool. So in this instance, the shape tool is Q. And if you keep pressing Q, you'll see that the tool icon changes. And if you hold the mouse button down over the tool, you will see that you have embedded tools. So here there are 2, 4, 5 tools. And we're going to first use the rectangle tool. Right here is the fill. This means the color of the shape. The stroke means the outline of the shape. And to the right of that, you have 17. That's the thickness of the shape. So go ahead and drag a shape out on the screen and hit pause. Do that. Alright, unpause. Now what you're going to do is change the fill. So whatever, doesn't matter. Just change it to something different than what you have it now. And then you're going to click on the stroke here and change this as well. And to the right of this, you can click on the pixels and add a number manually just by typing a number and pressing enter. Or you can click on it and drag it to the right or to the left. And if you make a mistake ever, you press Control Z. So hit pause and go ahead and add a stroke that is different than what it was when you made the shape. Okay, so in order to move this, unpause. In order to move this, we have to use the move tool. If you keep the shape tool and you click down here and you try to move, you're going to drag another shape out and then another shape. And then if you look down here on your layer, you'll see that you have 1, 2, 3 rectangles. Okay, now what you're going to do is with the move tool, you can click on these individual rectangles and move them around. Okay, so if you created these shapes, that's fine. Just press Control Z until they disappear. All right, now we're just going to work with the one shape. And you notice this target right here in the middle, that's called the anchor point. That's where this object pivots and moves from and scales from. So we want it to be in the center of the shape. No matter where you create a shape, it's going to put the shape where you create it, and the anchor point is going to be in the center of the composition. It's always going to be in the center of the screen, but we want it to center from here. Otherwise, when we rotate this object, it's going to rotate from the center point. When we scale it, it's going to scale out weird from the center. So what we want to do is move it onto the center of this shape. So with this layer selected, you're going to press Control, Alt, Home. And that will center the anchor point. And then you're just going to move this shape into the upper left-hand corner with the Move tool right here selected. So what we're going to do is open up this layer here. So you can click on the Open and Collapse arrow keys. And what you'll see here are Contents and Transform. For the transform, you have anchor point, position, scale, rotation, and opacity. We're never going to mess with anchor point. We're just going to do position, scale, rotation, and opacity. And in the contents, we're going to completely ignore the contents for this first lesson. So what I want you to do is, in an animation that lasts 0 frames to 15 frames, is move this shape from here to here. And what I want you to do first is watch me do it. Then I want you to hit pause and do it yourself. So I'm going to open up the shape layer. I'm going to click on position, turn on the stopwatch. You'll see that now I have a blue diamond on the screen. That's called an anchor point, or a keyframe. So I'm going to drag the scrubber to 15 frames, and I'm going to drag this shape to the lower right hand corner of the screen. So hit pause on the video and do that again. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is move this shape from here to up here in a matter of 15 frames to 1 second, or 30 frames. So I'm going to drag the scrubber to 1 frame, make sure that I have the Move tool selected, and I'm going to move this shape directly up. And you will see that it is curved. We'll get into why that's curved on another lesson. We're not going to worry about it right now. So it just moves down and it moves up. Okay? And now hit pause and do that. Now what I want to do is I want to move this shape from here to over here, but I want it to stay in this position for 1 second to 1 second and 15 frames before it starts moving. So what I have to do is the last keyframe here, I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it right here. So in between this keyframe and this keyframe, since they're the same exact keyframe, they're the same exact position, it's not going to move anywhere. So what I'm going to do is select this keyframe, press Control C, and then press Control V. And when I press play, which is spacebar, you'll see that it just stays there. So hit pause and do that. Alright, unpause. Now from 1 second and 15 frames to 2 seconds, we're going to move this shape over here, back to where it came from. So hit pause and go ahead and do that. Okay, unpause. Now if you take the scrubber back to the beginning and press spacebar, this is what it should do. Alright, now what I want you to do is rotate this guy. So I'm going to take the scrubber back to 0 frames. I'm going to select rotation and I'm going to turn on the stopwatch. So hit pause and go ahead and do that. Okay, unpause. Now you have 2 numbers here. You have 0x plus 0 degrees. 0 degrees just means where this guy is angled, and 0x means how many times he's going to be rotated. So this is just for transformation. If you import an image and it's rotated in the wrong way, you can fix it with this, but really we're only going to focus mainly is this first number here. So I've turned on the rotation, and the computer in this keyframe says 0x. So now I'm going to move the scrubber to the very last keyframe at 2 seconds, and I'm going to change the rotation from 0x to 2x. So press pause and do that. Okay, unpause. Now what's going to happen if I take the scrubber back to 0 and press play is this shape is going to rotate once and twice from point A to point B, which is from here to here. So if I press play, it's going to rotate. There we go. All right. Now what we're going to do is scale. So again, I'm going to click on scale. I'm going to click on the stopwatch. I'm going to drag the scrubber to 1 second. And I'm going to change the scale to 50 and press enter. Press pause and do that. Okay, unpause. So if I take the scrubber back to the beginning, it's going to change this keyframe right here. If you look over here, this keyframe says that this object is at 100%. And if I drag it to the second keyframe, which is right here, it says that this keyframe is 50%. So the last thing I want you to do is drag the scrubber to 2 seconds and change the scale to 100% and press enter. All right, press pause and do that. All right, unpause. The last thing we're going to do on this is add an opacity. So opacity means transparency. If you drag this number to the right, you will see, to the left, it will become transparent or invisible. So what we're going to do here is turn on opacity, and we're going to do every 15 frames. We're going to change it from 100% to 0 to 100 to 0 to 100. So I'm going to drag the scrubber to 15 seconds. Drag this all the way to the left or click on it, press enter and 0. I'm going to take the scrubber to 1 second, click here, press 100, press enter. I'm going to do the same thing at 1 second, 15 seconds, change this keyframe to 0%, press enter, and I'm going to drag the scrubber to 2 seconds, change this to 100% and press 0. Press pause and go ahead and do that. All right, unpause. So what we have is this. Okay. That is all I want you to do today.